Alright, so this is the 8th video in my Stormlight Archive recap starting with the Way of Kings, and now we're going to jump into part 3, and I'm just going to talk about Kaladin's POVs. Alright, so we start off with Kaladin, and we see that the bridge, the entire Bridge 4 is now following him. They're listening to him, and they're going through the training that he's having them go through so that running the bridges isn't so hard on them. We get a Gaz POV, and he's talking to Lamaril, and it is clear that Kaladin is being noticed for what he's doing, and not in a good way. And then when we get back to Kaladin, we see that he's starting to teach the bridgemen how to hold the bridge sideways, because he's hatching this plan to potentially use the bridge as a big shield next time they do a bridge run. We get another Kaladin flashback, this time from 6 years ago, and it is very clear that there is increasing tension between the new City Lord and Kaladin's family. He's trying to push Lirin to spend the spheres that the previous City Lord left Kaladin's family. Like, he's not letting people pay for the healing services, and it's pretty rough on them, but they want to save the money for Kaladin's surgeon training. And then at the end of the chapter, people from the town try to, demand the spheres. And then when Lirin exposes them of, like, he's not an idiot. He knows that these are people he has personally healed or birthed their children and stuff. They are ashamed and slink away. Back in present time, Bridge 4 gets a new member, and this is One-Armed Lopin, the Herdanzian. And then we do see another bridge run, and they do attempt the side carry, and it is disastrously successful. And by that I mean not a single one of their bridgemen dies, but it garners so much attention also from other bridges that they try and replicate what Kaladin's doing, and they fail. So a bunch of bridge crew members die, and he basically screws up the entire assault, and Sadeas is not successful with that bridge run. So this is very bad for Kaladin. Before getting the shit beat out of him, he hears the words, "Bridgemen are not supposed to survive." And then Kaladin, when he wakes up, all hurting, he is strung up for the High Storm's judgment. And pretty much everybody assumes he's gonna die. This is normally a death sentence, but he tells his men, "Come out here when the storm is over and see me open my eyes and see that I've survived." Also, Lamaril was executed, but Gaz is still alive. Before leaving Kaladin for his judgment, Teft puts a sphere in Kaladin's hand, and then Kaladin faces the storm. He ends up seeing a giant face in the storm front, and then he passes out, but we do know that he survives. We get another Kaladin flashback from 5.5 years ago, and this is when Kaladin goes up to the City Lord's mansion with his father, and this is just, a bunch of posturing. The City Lord wants to get those spheres. He's like, "You can keep this percentage, I'll keep that." Kaladin's dad sends him into the kitchens, and he gets humiliated by Laurel in front of the City Lord's son, who it appears she's now, supposed to be with. So that sucks for Kaladin, and then he ends up going back home with his father, and he tells him, he left, like, pretending to be all upset as if the City Lord had gotten to him a little bit so he can feel like he's doing something. But on the way home, Kaladin actually learns that his dad did steal those spheres, and it was not legitimate documentation that, the City Lord actually left it to them. Bridge 4 was allowed to cut Kaladin down, and now they're caring for him. He's very delirious and out of it, but Teft seems to know something, because he brings infused spheres to Kaladin, and he watches Kaladin absorb the stormlight, and some of his smaller wounds heal up, and just in general he starts to look better. We see Teft thinking to himself like he has to let the other Envisagers know about Kaladin, but apparently they're all gone except for him. When Kaladin wakes up 10 days later, his men are calling him Captain Kaladin, but Kaladin is really struggling now with basically what's the point of it all? Like, bridgemen aren't supposed to survive, so what's he supposed to do? We get another flashback from 5.5 years ago. The City Lord and his son are both wounded in a white spine hunt, and his son, he's not savable. So Lirin's saves were shown, the father, and obviously he's upset because he wanted, Lirin to save his son. But Kaladin, watching the surgery, knows it would have been very, very easy for his father to have, like, cut this artery that was, like, right there, but he didn't. And Kaladin thinks to himself, he knows he could kill if he had to, because he would have let Rashom die. Back to the present, we get a replacement for Lamaril, but it really seems like this dude's wife wears the pants because she's the one talking to the bridgemen, and she basically tells them they are on perma-chasm duty. Like, when they're not running the bridge, they're down in the chasms. Syl mentions that she remembers helping men kill before, and Kaladin's like, what? And she doesn't remember how. Kaladin kind of has a breakdown and tells the men, like, it's hopeless, what's the point? Syl and Teft are trying to get Kaladin to snap out of it. Teft says journey before destination, and Syl likes the sound of that. Sigil expands on it. Life before death, strength before weakness, journey before destination. Kaladin thinks some more, and he hatches this crazy plan where it's like, hey, we're gonna die anyway, so what I can try to do is train you all up, and we can try to escape. And since nobody really has anything to lose, they're all on board. We get another flashback 5 years ago, and Rashon is now engaged to Laurel, which is creepy, but alright. And then he talks about how Amaram is recruiting for his army, and he has a list of names that, you know, he is forcing to join, and Tien is one of them, Kaladin's younger brother. And so Kaladin, you know, tries to be Katniss and says, I volunteer, but he's not allowed to take Tien's place, so instead he joins as well. During a high storm, Kaladin has this dream that he's like sailing on the storm and seeing these like strange lands he's never seen before. I'm pretty sure he also sees Szeth killing people. And then I have my little notes here because he gets talked to by the Stormfather, presumably, and he says, child of Tanavast, child of honor, child of one long since departed, the oath pact was shattered. Men ride the storm no longer. The oath pact is broken, child of honor. And here Kaladin sees a face form in the storm, and he says, Odium comes, most dangerous of all the 16, you will go now. And Kaladin asks, why is there so much war? Like, why do men fight? And he's the, you know, great voice says, Odium reigns. And then Kaladin wakes up. And when he comes to, there's a bunch of men holding him down because apparently he tried to go out into the storm. Also important to note that the spheres are done again. They're supposed to be infused after a high storm, but the ones near Kaladin are blank. We learn that Moash is driven by vengeance, and he wants to, you know, earn a shard blade. Through Rock, we also learn that Sigil is a world singer, which is apparently someone who, you know, travels around and then shares stories of people to other people. Bridge 4 gets another new member. This time it's a Parshman, and everybody is pretty sus of him. But, you know, Kaladin tries to say we're not going to be like Light Eyes, treating him, you know, like crap, so he's a member of Bridge 4. Kaladin asks Syl if she knows about Odium, and she freaks and, like, goes away. Kaladin's doing one of his thinking walks through the war camps, and then he comes upon screaming, and it's this courtesan in the street who's being beaten by her customer. And then right before Kaladin's about to intervene, someone in a blue uniform does. And we know that this is Adolin, Dalinar's son, and he walks away with her, takes care of her, and he, you know, flicks Kaladin an emerald brom, and he's like, hey, go send this this message for me that I can't make it to this meeting. Kaladin pockets the emerald, but he does not, you know, he's like, I'm not going to be his errand boy. We get another flashback from a year ago, and we learn what happens after Sen dies, which was like one of the first scenes we ever read about Kaladin. And it turns out that Kaladin ended up killing the shard bearer, but when it came to him picking up the shards, he just couldn't do it because he knew that would make him be a Light Eyes, and he just couldn't stomach that. So he gives the shards to one of his fellow men from his squad. And this is like unheard of. Nobody gives up shards that they win. We get a little more of Teft asking Kaladin, like, are you feeling strange? Are you feeling weird? Like, he's not subtle with it, but we still don't know what exactly Teft knows. And then Cal does begin training the guys in the chasms, and we learn that Teft does have some military background because Kaladin's like, Teft, go split them into squads, and he's like, yes, sir. So that's how that goes. And then Kaladin has Rock and Lopin work with Syl to get some salvage while they're down there because they still have to have something to show for when they get up from the chasms. And then Kaladin's POVs in part 3 ends with his final flashback from a year ago, where we see that the reason he hates Light Eyes and hates Amaram so much is that they did not let Kaladin give away those shards. They killed every single person on his team, took the shards for himself, Amaran did, and then as a mercy, they let Kaladin live with his slave brand and marked him as a deserter.